It's officially a new day for Tennessee Titans football. New Titans head coach Brian Callahan touched down in Nashville for his introductory press conference. Turron Davenport is ESPN's Titans beat reporter, and he's on with us live from the team's practice facility. Can you go give me a shake or a ham sandwich or something after this, man? Appreciate you jumping on with us. We know that today is going to be the press conference. What are you expecting for Callahan to say, the ownership, and how are Tennessee Titans fans kind of responding to this hire?
Yeah, it's a balanced mix of emotions for the Titans fans. Some are really excited about it. Some are still holding on to the Mike Vrabel train. But I think it is a dawn of a new era for the Titans. And I would expect Brian Callahan to share just how he's worked with the different quarterbacks, Peyton Manning, Matthew Stafford, Derrick Carr, and obviously Joe Burrow, and how that work that he's done can transfer over to the young quarterback they have in Will Levis. So I think you'll see that. I would imagine he's going to have to address his father, Bill Callahan, the possibility of him coming over from Cleveland. So those are some of the things that I would say.
So when he's going to talk about the quarterbacks that he's worked with, do you think that he's going to address the fact that he's never called plays as an offense coordinator in the NFL? Do you think that's a big deal when it comes to this hire?
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to come out. And just in seeing some of the things that Zach Taylor said, the head coach with the Bengals, he talked about how even though Brian Callahan is not calling the plays, he was heavily involved in the game plan, the install. You know how it is when you're installing the game plan and everything. It's not just one guy that's involved with that. He was a big part of it. And he was even in the ear of the other coaches all the way up until the play call is made. So even though he wasn't making the specific play call, he still had a lot to do with it. And I think that's still important. So you look at other guys, right? Mike McDaniel. You look at Zach Taylor himself. These guys didn't call plays. And last time I checked, those are two really good offenses. So I wouldn't hold that against them.
I wonder why it was a problem with Eric Bieniemy the last couple of years when he was on his head coaching cycle. But, you know, it is what it is. I give props to everybody who's going out there and they're living their dream. When I heard that Callahan was going to be hired, I went back and I did my due diligence. I listened to an interview a couple of days back, and Titans owner Bert Tannehill spoke pretty highly about Callahan in his in-person interview when he was going for the job. He seems to think that they've hired their guy, but as Giants fans, we didn't heard that every time they didn't hire the coach. They've got their guy. So, go even in deeper on this. So what are your personal thoughts about the good and the bad of the hire?
Yeah, I mentioned the fact that he's worked with the quarterbacks. I think that's an awesome thing for Will Levis. I look at some of the other things, though, just the Bengals offense itself, how they were able to find success despite having a subpar offensive line. Well, you look at this Titans offensive line, that's exactly what it is. But there's a lot of money and draft picks and stuff that, they'll invest in it. But nevertheless, you do have to find success there. And I think that's a good thing. You also, just the Bengals offense overall. This is a top 10 scoring offense for most of the time. But the thing that really impressed me also was just the fact that they're so multiple. Like, they're able to find that balance on offense. And that's something I want to ask him about balance. Like, is that 60-40, 50-50 run pass? How do you look at it? But they've been able to find that, and they're able to morph into different offenses according to the opponent and the situation, whether it's 12 personnel with Irv Smith and Drew Sample, or it's running 11, right? And we know those three receivers. You got T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd, and you're doing something. But then they can run the football, too, with Joe Mixon. So I like the way that Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan, they came together and found different ways to win on offense and be successful with multiple looks.
The Bengals also did a great job with their RB2. The name slips me, but the rookie, I think Chad Scott, somebody came in and he was balling. So being able to get
Chad
Brown. Yeah, no relation to James Brown.
Chad Scott. You probably went against Chad Scott when you were playing. He was
I did. Yeah. But there's just the fact that they're able to get the most out of a rookie RB2 running back. That goes to show you that the offense development, the scheme using personnel, whether it was Zach Taylor or Callahan, they did a great job being able to get the most out of their players. Another thing Tannehill said was that Callahan and GM Rand Carthon have shared a vision as to where they want to go. So you talked about the money that they got in that pocket for the salary cap. What's their first order of business for these two?
Yeah, I would say the first order of business is going to be to address the offensive line. But you look at what Callahan said in one of his interviews. It was actually before this past season, and he talked about investing high picks on wide receivers with the Bengals,
Mm.
right? They have two receivers that were top 33 picks. So you do have that. Now, when you look at Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan, one of the things that really allowed them to merge so well was the fact that you look at how the Bengals, how they run their organization. It's a collaborative effort, and that's been the buzzword over the last year and a half here in Nashville. So you have that. It's run like a small business. So that's something where it's like family oriented and everybody is open to having the opportunity to contribute. So those are some of the things that make that mesh really well. And Burke Nihil, the team president, he had said that one of the things that stood out to him in that interview, that second interview, was it changed from questions to sharing that vision.
Yep,
Hey,
yep.
this is what I want in a receiver. Normally 6'1", 200, or whatever their requirements are. This is what I like in offensive lineman. And they're bouncing that back and forth. And so it was like, two basketball players not playing with each other, but then after getting used to doing that, that pick and roll or whatever is working very well. That's what I like in it too.
Yeah, you look at the way that front offices are ran now when it comes to the relationship between the head coach and the GM. It's kind of like a democracy, not a dictatorship where the coach is the GM. That's kind of fading, and we're seeing that with Bill Belichick struggling to find a job now. Free agency wise, that's right around the corner. It feels like. Is there any idea what the team is going to do with Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, and some of the other free agents this team has?
Yeah, well, Ryan Tannehill pretty much admitted that he was gone. So that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
And, Tannehill had a productive run here. They did some great things. Derrick Henry is the intriguing one. You look at, as I mentioned, that balance on offense and being able to, when it's time to go shoot a shoe, lace up the boots, and run the football, the Bengals were able to do that. I wonder if Derrick Henry will remain with the team just because he's a volume back. He's a guy that you really need to give the ball 25 to 30 times in order for him to be effective. I don't know that those touches are going to be there with Tajay Spears, the second-year player, who's a lot like, if you picture Aaron Jones, he's a lot like Aaron Jones, and where he doesn't have to have a lot of carries, but he can have an impact with those few carries and touches. So I don't know how that would mix. So I say all that to say it will probably be the last. It's probably over for Derrick Henry here, and that's unfortunate because he's such a great player, and had such a run. I personally feel he's a Hall of Famer. I know there's some that don't, but, I mean, this guy had the fifth best rushing season in NFL history, so that says a lot.
Yeah, once he thanked the janitors and the cooking staff in the practice facility, I was like, he gone. We know how that works. Yeah. All right, we'll move on to talk about the draft. You mentioned how Callahan was kind of excited or what he can get out of a Will Levis. But both Levis and Malik Willis, they've showed, I guess, spurts of being QB1, but I don't know if that fan base is sold on one of these guys. So do you take a quarterback in the draft for a third year in the row, or is there a quarterback they could go out and target in free agency, or is Levis the guy?
Yeah, I think Levis is the guy. And I don't want to say he earned just 100% trust, but I think you look at just the progression that he made. I think he is the guy that you have to have going forward, at least this year. And you take a look after this year. But he could cement himself, and that's what they're hoping, frankly. And you look at the draft, they're at pick number 7, and it's very interesting because they could get into a situation like the Bengals had in 2021 where it's like, okay, do you want a Benz or a Beamer, right? Are you going to take Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell? And they ended up taking Chase, and we know that worked out well for them, and it's working out well for the Lions as well. So you look at pick 7, right? It could end up being like a Olu Fashanu or Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors. And Rome Odunze, Neighbors, these are some ballers, So it could be, okay, which direction do you want to go? And that'll be interesting just seeing, how that works out. Fortunately for them, they need receiver help. They need O-line help. This draft is deep at both of them. You look at a guy like Jordan Morgan, who may be there at pick 38. The tackle from Arizona, that's a good option. But then on the flip side, Xavier Leggett. I don't know if you watch Xavier Leggett from South Carolina, but if you haven't, watch him. That dude is a monster when you talk about yards after catch. And you got Worthy, who's a deep threat. So, yeah, there's a lot of options that they could go. I'm excited about it just to get to watch all of these guys and everything. So I can't wait to see how this thing works out.
And you know Callahan has to be excited about it because he's walking into a team that already has weapons. He's walking into an ownership that knows what they're doing, and he's walking into the fan base that you guys have out there. So there's worse situations to walk into, as we've seen with a lot of these head coaches. Turron, thanks for hopping on with this, my man. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you.